Hey there, everyone, and welcome to episode 79 of Halfway Through the Heat, the world's most important, most prestigious, most spectacular Trans-Pacific Wrestling podcast. I am joined today by my co-host, Tom Breen. How you doing, Tom?
Hanging in there.
I am about the same. So we've got some stuff to talk about. We've got more inductees into the Hall of Fame. Bunch of wrestling deaths this week. Of course, that most happened the day after we recorded the last podcast.
That's the way it is. The way it always is.
Cody Rhodes getting upset at stuff he shouldn't get upset at. Nick Gage news. And some more TV wrestling that's not really wrestling. And then we've got some under-the-radar U.S. wrestling tournaments. That's a thing. And we'll talk about some wrestling that's going on this weekend. So, but first we are going to say something positive about Raw. Well, Tom is going to say something positive about Raw because I did not watch Raw this week. So, Tom, bring in the positivity.
So what I liked about Raw this week, keeping it positive, was they set up, they continued to set up the Sami Zayn Samoa Joe fight in a really interesting way. Kevin Owens was gonna wrestle Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn comes down, and it's like the renewal of this ancient rivalry, the El Generico Kevin Steen thing, and then out of nowhere, Samoa Joe pops up and just beats the living hell out of Sami Zayn and throws him in the ring, and then Owens just thrashes him, just kills him. Zayn gets no offense and nothing. Owens kills him and gets the pin. And I really like what they're doing, where they're making Sami Zayn like the ultimate sympathetic underdog, and they're setting it up in a really interesting way, and hopefully for a confrontation where he'll ultimately get his own back against Samoa Joe. So that was good.
Okay.
The rest was pure trash. But no, that's not true. There were some good things, but it was an off week. It definitely wasn't as good as the week before with the Festival of Friendship.
It was a bad week. Well, it's a good week that I was too busy to watch Raw, so at least I didn't miss something awesome where it was like that was the best Raw ever.
No, you didn't. I mean, just like a decent development in the. It's always nice to see Samoa Joe go nuts on a guy too. Well, before we get into I guess we should just get in the news then. But a piece of news that is not on our run of show list because it just happened. Naomi, the SmackDown Women's Champion, is apparently legitimately injured because on SmackDown she relinquished the belt because of an injury. It looks to be like a shoot injury, as they say, and then Alexa Bliss wrestled Becky Lynch for the vacant title and won. So Alexa Bliss is the new women's champion. That's a huge bummer because it was really nice to see them finally have some confidence in Naomi and give her a shot. And she was going to come into WrestleMania in her hometown with the championship. So kind of a feel good story there has been derailed by injury. Also, I kind of don't know. I'm not sure what they were planning at WrestleMania, but now obviously they have to call an audible and come up with something new. We've seen the Alexa Bliss Becky Lynch feud already. It's sort of old at this point, and they don't have a lot of women in the division on SmackDown Live. I don't want to get into fantasy booking or anything, but to me, this would be a great time to bring Asuka up to the main roster.
Yeah, I think they're instead going to start bringing back some of the previous women. There's been rumors that Kelly Kelly is going to come back.
That's right. Yep, a lot of rumors that Kelly Kelly. Supposedly they also reached out to a couple of other past superstars, Brooke Adams being one of them, Jillian, another one. I'm not sure that makes the most sense. It seems to me you'd want to, especially with the sort of the new Divas era, a non-divas era rather, you'd want to bring up people who can really wrestle, and they have plenty of those in NXT right now. Maybe you want to wait on Kimberly and Heidi Lovelace while they learn the ropes, but Asuka is more than ready. Somebody on Twitter, God.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Somebody on Twitter, God bless them. They have tallied up the number of matches that Asuka has won. Her streak is at 129 straight wins.
That's a lot of straight wins.
That's a lot of straight wins, and Goldberg's famous streak was 173, but a lot of that was made up. Because if you remember from the old days, like they would just like jump ahead a lot on WCW, like from like week to week. Suddenly, Goldberg will have won like 13 matches from the last Nitro.
Do you remember when they were doing the rival streak thing, where Sid Vicious had the rival streak, and he would get points on the streak, but like 6 jobbers would come out, and he would just like power slam all of them, and he would get 6 wins there.
Right. Yeah, that kind of thing. Whereas, this is a legitimate, I believe, 129. Asuka has not lost since she's come into NXT.
That's a lot of wins. I wonder if they're secretly going for like an Asuka streak thing, where like she's gonna beat Goldberg's streak.
That would be great. I mean, if they are, now's the time to start talking about it. But that would be fantastic if she ultimately kind of broke Goldberg's streak. She may have already. Let's be honest. She may have broken the real streak.
That's probably true.
But I would like to see Asuka on the main roster, but it doesn't sound like that's the immediate plan. A lot of talk about Kelly and so forth.
So they could have they should bring back Medusa.
They should bring back Medusa. I'd be fine with that.
She's kind of old, but she could come back as an old lady faction.
Yeah, bring her back as a manager or something. Like in Legendary with Leilani Kai.
Oh yeah, I guess that could be true. Bring back Leilani Kai.
Bring back Leilani Kai. Why not? Why not? We said when they split the roster that they should have put all the women on one show, and differentiated the other show another way. Maybe all the cruiserweights, just because they don't have enough women in the main roster to, and especially when you have injuries like we do now, it gets tricky.
That is true.
But anyway, it's too bad. Naomi, hopefully we'll be back before long. Let's see. Oh, okay. DDP is the new inductee in the Hall of Fame. I thought this had already happened, to be honest with you. Maybe it was rumored or something, or maybe we're just psychic, because I think we've said at one point that DDP was going to go in or was already in.
Yeah, we must have been talking about. Oh wait, that was last. Maybe that was last
maybe
time.
It was
last time when we were talking about Teddy Long and who should go in besides Teddy Long.
Oh yeah, you could be right. Anyway, DDP is the newest inductee in the 2017 class. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
DDP yoga all over that.
He's gonna brand the hell out of that. I've done DDP yoga. It's pretty good.
I illegally downloaded the DVDs, but when my computer died, I lost that stuff. So,
I'm shocked.
I have not. I've not actually watched DDP yoga or participated.
So shocked. It's not bad. Anyway, he's definitely deserving. He was alongside Sting and Goldberg. Actually, Sting started in the NWA days. So in terms of like the actual WCW era, when it was WCW, like DDP is one of the only stars they made.
DDP was also in AWA, so obviously he's an AWA star.
That's yeah. Claim him as one of Vern's success stories. And he was a big star. He was like one of the faces of that era in WCW. And he had a real cool story. He didn't start wrestling until he was 35. That's impressive.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I did say he was in AWA, but he was just a manager in AWA. He didn't actually wrestle.
that's right. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was like a sleazy manager character, and he just like wanted to wrestle, and so like went for it and was one of the biggest stars. And he's a really good wrestler too. Like he honestly, Goldberg's best match ever was the Halloween Havoc match against DDP, which of course the people who bought the pay per view didn't get to see because the program ran long.
I I vaguely remember that happening. Maybe we watched that at Phil's house.
We might have, and it cut off like right when the match started because they ran over. Classic WCW when you think about it.
It's true.
Uh, but anyway,
Uh,
I got no problems with DDP being in the Hall of Fame. I think it's a long overdue if you ask me.
he was a multi-time champion in WCW.
He was. He was also, if you'll recall, in the movie with David Arquette.
He was, but we try not to recall that.
And he was part of that angle that David Arquette was involved in that ultimately saw David Arquette become heavyweight champion of the world. Although
He is. I'm looking at his Wikipedia page right now, and he's been in a surprisingly large amount of movies.
DDP.
Yeah.
I'll also say that in David Arquette's defense, he did not want to be champ.
Yeah. I mean, it's not David Arquette's idea to be the
It was
champ.
it was Vince Russo's idea.
Yeah, Vince Russo.
Um, who do you think is going to induct DDP?
Vince Russo. No. I don't know. Who would uh who do you think should induct DDP? Um he did manage Vinny Vegas, so maybe Kevin Nash.
Yeah,
Um
Nash come back to it.
I don't
Any of
know.
those.
Yeah, I mean
Sting would be good, honestly. Um, any of those WCW guys, I think, would be good. But who knows?
Scott Steiner.
Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner would be even better than Vince Russo when you think about it.
They got in a real life fight once.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Man, I would not pick a fight with Scott Steiner.
Yeah, that's probably a bad idea.
Unless I was Rick Steiner, the two of them probably fought all the time. But yeah, so DDP, not sure who will induct him.
I'm looking at his Wikipedia page, and the last thing in this thing is like, in February 21st, 2014, Page appeared on the ABC series Shark Tank, where he declined to sell a 5% share in DDP Yoga for $200,000. He had hoped to use the money to develop a mobile app. The investors believed the company's profits, $800,000 in the previous year, would fall. Page later said he sold more than $1 million worth of product in the first 6 days after his appearance.
Yeah, he's done a lot of good stuff like helping guys like Scott Hall and Jake the Snake sort of get back on their feet and try to get clean from drugs and everything. He's sort of a humanitarian in that sense. He's a good guy.
Yeah, I
and,
mean, he did have those guys like living at his house
Yeah, they moved in with him.
because he wanted to help them, and it worked. I mean, while they were living there, at least it seems to have worked for Jake the Snake, at least.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty impressive, and he's still married to Kimberly, the Diamond Doll,
It's true.
after
Kimberly
all these
Page.
years. A lot of good in the DDP story. The not so good this past week, George the Animal Steel and Ivan Koloff, the Russian Bear, both died. Both were most famous for their stints in the WWF and the WWWF, the New York territory. Koloff was probably not as well known. I think George the Animal Steel was really well known because he was around during the rock and wrestling Hulk Hogan Hulkamania era. I have fond childhood memories of George the Animal Steel. What about you?
I do too. I believe I actually owned a Maiden doll. If you remember
Okay.
those, the doll he used to carry around with the
Oh, yeah.
when he had the green tongue.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's right.
It was called Mine. Mine.
I had one of those. You remember like they were they weren't action figures because they couldn't move. They were rubber.
Oh yeah, those like they all had the same body shape, rubber
Yes.
dudes. The with the wrestling
They
ring.
had,
They had the wrestling ring. Yeah.
they had the wrestling ring, which they were like they were like immovable hunks of rubber, and if you threw them, and they would really hurt if you got hit in the head, as I found out, as we all found out, I think. But I had George Animal Steel, and
he was also Tor Johnson in the Ed Wood movie.
that's right. He appeared in like an actual critically acclaimed, really well done movie, which you can't say about most wrestlers who appear in movies. And I remember when I was a little kid, and he'd come out and he'd eat the turnbuckle and whatever, and my dad was like, "That guy's probably a high school teacher in real life," and he was a high school teacher in real life. I don't know if my dad knew that or not, but part of the George the Animal Steel story that I find so delightful is that he was a high school teacher and a wrestling coach. And when he started his wrestling career in the 60s, he worked under a mask as the student. And Gary Hart was his Playboy Gary Hart was his manager. And the reason he wore a mask was because he was afraid he'd get fired from his teaching job if people knew he was a pro wrestler. But I met him once at a fan convention, and he was the picture of politeness and just a friendly guy, really sharp. Seemed genuinely happy that fans still remembered him and still knew who he was. Just a really nice dude who was enjoying what his career had done for him. So was happy to see that that doesn't turn out that way for every wrestler. And he lived a long life too. He was born in 1937. So I don't know. Ivan Koloff. I remember him from NWA, I guess, in the 80s when he was sort of the elder, sinister Russian figure with Nikita Koloff as his protege. But his heyday was really the late 60s and early 70s. He was the guy who broke Bruno Sammartino's 8-year championship reign, beat Bruno Sammartino at the Garden. He was obviously a transitional champ. Pedro Morales then came in and beat him and held the belt for like 4 years or something. But still, Ivan Koloff, a little before my time, but definitely a name to reckon with.
That is true. Ivan Koloff was he was kind of a big heel for a while. I mean, he was just kind of a the kind of thing where let's see, they had what was the big thing he did, his big feud, I'm trying to remember who is like his legendary battles with Ivan Koloff
Other than Bruno?
yeah. Oh wait, Dusty Rhodes? No, Dusty Rhodes, right? Didn't he have like a thing with
He did,
Dusty?
yeah.
Oh wait, he was part of that. He was in that tag team with with Crusher Khrushchev, who was the Repo Man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he had a long and varied career, and was a good wrestler, and worked that probably the best. I would say I would argue that Ivan Koloff was the best at the fake Russian gimmick.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that. There were a bunch of fake Russian gimmicks though.
There were a ton. The one who I think is maybe the most famous, again because he was around at the time of Hulkamania, was Nikolai Volkov, who was fine, but he wasn't really. I don't want to cast aspersions on anyone, but he wasn't. He was a solid brawler, but like in terms of wrestling, like Ivan Koloff could really go and have a good match, whereas Nikolai Volkov was sort of better in tags, where he could kind of come off the apron occasionally and menace the babyface, but not exactly a guy who's going to have a huge amount of decent matches.
Okay, so we'll quickly do top five Russian gimmicks.
Top 5 Russian gimmicks.
So we put Ivan Koloff at 1 already. Who would you put at 2?
Nikita Koloff, probably.
I was gonna say Nikita Koloff, I'd guess.
Especially early when he was a heel, I thought he was great. Then when remember, like in the late 80s when Gorbachev was the leader of Russia, and suddenly like Glasnost and Perestroika were happening, and like Russia was really popular, and there was like it was this big thaw in popular culture, and then Nikita Koloff became a good guy, and I did not like him as a babyface.
Yeah, that's you. None of those guys can be can really be baby faces will. Let's see. Who would you put as number three? I guess Nikolai Volkov.
Probably Nikolai Volkov, who had some good runs, especially with the Iron Sheik as his tag team partner.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Who would you put at four though? That's I guess I mean Boris Zukov.
Boris Zukov. Yeah, that's not a terrible one.
Um,
Then maybe Crusher Khrushchev.
yeah, I mean he's like for Barry Darso is like not a bad wrestler or anything.
No. He was in Demo.
Yeah, he was in Demolition and all, but like, um, I don't know. I mean, I guess do we want to put Boris Zukov above Barry Darso though? I
Yeah,
mean,
maybe not. I don't think so.
but that's because I mean, realistically, Boris Zukov was just like the other guy in the Bolsheviks, right? I mean,
All right, here's I got a list of Russian wrestlers, and I actually looking at this list, I think we're kind of we're kind of solid on ours. Alexei Smirnov, the Bolsheviks, Boris Malenko, who was Dean Malenko's dad. I guess he had kind of a Russian gimmick for a while, but then he was like the Professor Boris Malenko. If we're counting him, then he ranks really high. He definitely is top three.
oh yeah, definitely.
Um,
Alex
but somebody,
Kozlov, Vladimir Kozlov.
yeah, Alex Kozlov, and some of these are just names like the Mad Russian, Russian Assassin number 1, Russian Assassin number 2, the Russian Wolfman. I don't know who the Russian Wolfman was. I love that gimmick though. The Russian Brute, the Russian Crusher, the Russian Stomper. Oh, Soldat Ustinov. God, he sucked. um, there were a ton of fake Russian gimmicks, especially in the Cold War. But I think our list is pretty solid.
Who did we pick as our? I guess Crusher Khrushchev would be the 4, and then Boris Zukov. Unless unless we're counting Boris Malenko, then
then Boris Zukov is pushed out of the top 5.
not Mr. Strongko.
Or Alex Kozlov, who briefly held mixed tag titles with Christina Von Eerie in AAA.
Really?
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, Vladimir Kozlov was briefly a tag team champion with Santino Marella.
That's right. That was a weird mix too.
He was in the title picture, sort of, in like 2008 or something, maybe.
I think that's right.
So he also in ECW, not the fake ECW on Sci-Fi.
Oh yeah, I think he was. That was a time when I was kind of only half paying attention to wrestling.
Yeah, well, me too, but well, hold on. Let's look what Vladimir Kozlov was doing. Okay, so I'm looking at his Wikipedia now, and yeah, he was tag champion. He was in Ohio Valley. He was on ECW, and then apparently he was in Inoki's Genome Federation.
Okay.
But that's like a sort of shoot fight kind of promotion. It's not like it's like a half shoot fight promotion.
Nothing is making me think that we're making a mistake by making Ivan Koloff number 1.
I know. Yeah, I mean,
when you think about it, there were also like a ton of evil Germans too earlier on, the 50s and 60s. When you think about it, it's just a real easy gimmick. You don't necessarily have to be a great wrestler to get over with fans if they're primed to hate all Russian people, as they were in those days.
Yeah, the Germans one would be easier, but I think it's less. Um, you know, most of them are not as well known because they're kind of you know.
Yeah, probably the best. The best known I think would be Baron von Raschke and Fritz von Erich.
Yeah,
Who
that's Fritz von Erich, of course, but
who I mean, pretty quickly became like a good guy, and like ditched the like the capes with swastikas on them and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a different time. Yeah. So anyway, sad to lose George the Animal Steel and Ivan Koloff. Ivan Koloff, who of course was not actually Russian, he was from Ottawa, and in later life became an ordained Protestant minister in North Carolina. And when I was there, I knew some people who knew him, and again, same kind of thing. Everyone had nice stories to say about him. Like he was one of those guys who people really seemed to like. Nicole Bass also died, as you mentioned. Not her contributions to wrestling not quite on the order of George the Animal Steel and Ivan Koloff, but she definitely was a memorable figure from that late '90s era in wrestling.
The Attitude Era. So anybody who's nostalgic for the Attitude Era, remember that Nicole Bass was a wrestler. And
also, as we learned tonight, a performer in some adult films.
That is true. We earlier we were looking to see what Nicole Bass had done in the old WWF, but she apparently had left abruptly, and then like there was all these titles, like what the hell were the titles? Like
Spank That Bitch Part 2.
Spank That Bitch 2, and I thought like, well, if that's not porn, I don't know what it could be, but it was definitely porn.
And it was directed by Lizzie Borden, who was part of XPW, where Nicole Bass apparently did some work as a wrestler. We should do a segment one of these days on XPW. I think people who weren't around for that like have missed out. That was easily the sleaziest, craziest wrestling promotion of all time. Just pure garbage.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of wrestling promotions that are pure garbage, but XPW though, that's
they took the cake. They really have an interesting story. Somebody could do a great like oral history of XPW. From when they invaded an ECW show in LA and like got beat up. And,
yeah, that was a bad idea.
That was a bad idea. The guy who ran it, Rob Black, was a pornographer, and his wife was Lizzie Borden, and they both went to jail during the George Bush administration for obscenity. So it's an interesting story, the old XPW. I actually I got it free. The like 3 DVD set of XPW TV shows.
I like to imagine you went to like a regular store and they were just like, we can't sell this, but I see that you're buying wrestling DVDs, so maybe you want it.
I went to Ken's Cards and Collectibles in beautiful Berlin, Connecticut, and I was buying a bunch of wrestling magazines, and I bought some wrestling DVDs. And it wasn't Ken working there. It was another guy. He's like, we're trying to get rid of some of these DVDs. Do you want any of those? And they had the XPW one. I was like, well, how much? He's like, just take it. And I also got a Juggalo Championship Wrestling DVD there. So one of these days.
See, like I had heard that you had these DVDs, and I was wondering, like, why did you buy these? But now it makes sense.
Yeah, I just got them for free. So like one of these days, we'll have to watch some of that XPW.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe do a little segment on XPW. It's like my memory of it at the time is awful. Like just everything about it was bad. It was like a combination of local garbage wrestlers, like guys who they would bring in for one show because like Sabu came in because he was feuding with Paul Heyman or whatever, and then porn stars and like stars in quotation marks. So it's gonna be something.
Yeah. Well, like imagine like you've heard about ECW and you've only heard about the crazy stuff in ECW and not like the ridiculously good wrestling matches that ECW had. You just heard that like people hit each other with chairs and they bleed and there's sexy women in the ring, which was like part of ECW, but like a small part that
Right.
kind of, like if you and I had been to many ECW shows, and like those matches happen, but it's like one match on the card where there's like Balls Mahoney hitting someone with a chair,
Right.
um, and then like you know the rest of the time there's gonna be like you're gonna get like some crazy good matches, but people just kind of latched on to the thing like, oh, ECW is all about barbed wire and stuff, that kind of thing. And it's not that it didn't happen. It's just like it wasn't every match. XPW is like they just took that idea and like took out all the good wrestling parts.
Right. Yeah. It was something else. Very, very of its time. Speaking of fledgling young promotions out there, there's a little something called Impact Wrestling. Now,
Impact.
it's officially they are no longer known as TNA. But there's a story that out showing that Impact Wrestling is for real in a way that TNA perhaps is not, because Impact has announced its tapings through August. And if you remember sort of the last chaotic 2 years of TNA, it was like they were still, there was one pay, I think it was Bound for Glory last year, where like 2 days before it wasn't even clear it was going to happen.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
So, but Anthem, which owns Impact Wrestling, what they're doing is they're going to be doing these tapings like 4 days at a time. They have tapings announced for March, April, July, and August, so kind of interesting that they're taking May and June off. But the fact that they're that confident to announce tapings through August is a good sign, honestly, for Impact Wrestling. And if you have a chance, if you go to the blog, closetofanxiety.tumblr.com, there's an article up there. It's a Newsweek profile of Jeff Jarrett, and it goes into a lot of the detail about Impact Wrestling and sort of the last days of the Dixie Carter regime, and how things are changing kind of for the better. I'm kind of a skeptic about Jeff Jarrett, but like I'll say this right now, it looks like they're making all the right moves, and I want to see them succeed. I want every wrestling company to succeed, so I'm happy for the roster at Impact that they know at least they're going to be getting paychecks through August, and this seems like good news to me.
It's actually, I mean, since they're all taped anyway, it actually kind of makes sense to do them in these like 4-day blocks once a month, where
Absolutely.
like it leaves all those wrestlers open with like all this free time to take indie bookings or do what they're gonna do otherwise.
Right, because most of them are not getting paid enough to just work for Impact, so it makes sense they can have all this free time to do whatever they want. And like you said, that's good also for fans of indie wrestling, because now you can see your favorite Impact stars taking indie dates. And if the creative improves and it's sort of where it was in the Billy Corgan days, then all the better. Just watch out for those spoilers.
There'll be lots of spoilers, but what can you do?
What can you do? Somebody else who is on the independent circuit right now, Cody Rhodes. He was at over the weekend. PWG had their show with a terrible name. Sometimes PWG kind of set the standard for coming up with like funny names for shows. Like, this show is free. Just kidding. But boy, they've really been sucking wind on some of these names lately. Their show for February was called Only Kings Can Understand Each Other. Anyway, Only Kings Can Understand Each Other. The ring broke, which is the new indie trend for 2017, apparently. But Cody Rhodes was wrestling Trevor Lee. This comes to us from Pro Wrestling Sheet. Cody Rhodes was wrestling Trevor Lee, the Carolina Caveman, and Trevor Lee was working heel, and he got right before the match. He got in Cody's face and said, "You know what? Fuck Dusty Rhodes," which got a lot of heat from the crowd, which is what you're supposed to do when you're a heel. Well, guess what, buddy? He crossed a line. Cody tweeted shortly after the match, "I have one rule when you wrestle me or include me in interviews. I did not mention it to my opponent tonight. I apologize on my behalf for the match in Reseda. 100% accidental. Folks get carried away. Apology accepted. Edited from the film. Thank you for understanding. He didn't actually say what his one rule is, but I assume it's that you don't insult Dusty.
Could be that could be it.
But fine. I mean, I lost my dad recently too. But like in the context of a wrestling match, when the bad guy gets heat by saying "fuck Dusty Rhodes," like if anyone in the world would approve of that, it's the ghost of Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where it seems like a strange rule to have.
Yeah, like everyone's different. Every family deals with grief differently. But like this was Dusty's whole life. Like Dusty Rhodes pretended to have a broken leg to his own family to sell an angle once. Like that guy lived the business.
Yeah, like when the Four Horsemen broke his arm in the car or whatever, he like wore
right,
the cast at home.
That's right. Yes, it wasn't his broken leg, broken arm. Thank you. Yeah, but yeah, he and his kids were young enough. At least Cody was to like not know the difference. Like he sold his injury to his own kids to keep the angle going. He would have been fine with Trevor Lee saying "fuck Dusty Rhodes" to get heat. Like when CM Punk had his match with the Undertaker, and leading up to it, he was like playing with the urn, and then accidentally like spilled the Paul Bearer's ashes, because this was after Paul Bearer had died. So the idea was he was accidentally spilling Paul Bearer's ashes everywhere. And some people were like, "Oh, this is so disgusting. This is so I can't believe, like, what must Paul Bearer's poor family think?" And they talked about how Paul Bearer like would have loved it. It would have been so into it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's I've heard Jim Cornette talk about that, where he was saying like, oh yeah, he would have loved that. That would have been, he would have given that the 2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
the kind of thing
this
where
is, these are guys who gave their whole lives to this business. Like they would love it if that people are still, like crowds are still reacting just when you mention their name. So Cody Rhodes, again, everyone deals with grief differently, but I think you can chill out, Cody, and you can let the bad guys be bad guys in wrestling. But it makes me wonder what would happen if he were to wrestle Nick Gage. If that's the kind of thing that would be recognized, that if Nick would observe Cody's rule, probably not. Which leads us to our next point. Nick Gage is out of prison.
Nick Cage out of prison again.
Murder, death, kill. Nick Gage is out of prison, and he is going to be appearing at Zandig's Tournament of Survival.
Is that the tournament you were going to go to?
No, I was going to go to the Tournament of Death. Forget Survival. I was going to go to a CZW's Tournament of Death, but maybe I'll go to this one. So this is the Tournament of Survival, Zandig's Tournament of Survivals for Game Changer Wrestling. That's June 3rd in Howell, New Jersey. Nick Gage is going to be there, and he's been tweeting a lot since getting out, and he is a characteristically interesting Nick Gage tweets. One, I'll be honest, when I came out of prison the first time, I tried to be a feel-good story. I smiled and thanked people and pretended I cared. In reality, though, I was disgusted at myself when I looked in the mirror, because that's not me. I'm just built differently. I have no FNE. I don't know what FNE means. I'm cold. So, anyway, I'm not even going to go in locker rooms anymore. It shows. I don't want to shake hands or hear people say they're glad to see me. Fuck you. Let's fight. And then a few hours later, apropos of apparently nothing, he tweeted, Joey Janela is a weirdo. I smacked the shit out of him in Asbury Park. He's an okay dude.
I looked up FNE. It's I'm guessing it's not forensic nurse examiner, but probably fear of negative evaluation.
Ah, okay. So it must be a prison thing.
It's something on the psychological assessment scale, though.
That's a weird reference for Nick Gage to make.
It is. Could be fixed network equipment, though. So.
Well, he doesn't have it. Whatever it is, he does not have it. Nick Gage doesn't have it. So yeah,
it could be Fonds National pour Emploi, which is the French National Employment Fund. He probably
he
actually
doesn't have that. I know he doesn't have that.
So,
Yeah, so Nick Gage, one of the most compelling wrestlers, I think, right now. Not just because not because he's a real criminal like that, but just because he really talk about people who sort of live their gimmicks. He really seems to be Nick Gage 24 hours a day, and it's always sort of a question of like how much of this is a gimmick and how much of this is really him. But anyway, June 3rd, if you're in Howell, New Jersey, check it out. Zandig's Tournament of Survival. I may be there. I don't know. Maybe I'll go to the Tournament of Death though. More of a Tournament of Death guy.
You're more of a death guy than a survival guy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And our last piece of news is so one of the interesting things, as Uncle Dave Meltzer mentioned on the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week, the wrestling audience is the smallest it's been in a long time, based on average live attendance numbers for WWE shows and television viewership for God, I hate autoplay. Television viewership for Raw and SmackDown, which is bottoming out around 3 million. Still a big audience, but it's not what it once was. However, despite the small audience, there's a renewed interest in wrestling in mainstream culture. And we've talked about like the Mountain Goats album. We talked about the show they're making for Netflix, which is sort of based on Glow. Well, now there's a new show being made for the Starz cable network in the U.S. It's called Heels, and it's about two brothers who are wrestlers and who inherit a wrestling promotion in Georgia from their father who dies. One brother is a heel, one is a face, and it's apparently like a drama. It's an 8-episode run, is what Starz has ordered. I don't know. It's interesting to me that at a time when actual wrestling itself is more niche than ever, like the stuff that's going out to the mainstream is kind of interested in wrestling, but not really interested in wrestling. They're sort of interested in the drama around wrestling and the idea of this is a lifestyle kind of thing. I don't get Starz. I don't know how much money I'd have to pay to get that tier. Probably too much. But if it ever is on demand or on DVD or something, I'll check it out. I'm always interested to see what the normies think of wrestling.
What is it going to be streaming on? It's not on TV, right?
It is on TV. It's on Starz,
is.
which is like a Showtime kind of, Showtime or HBO-esque. It's one of those premium cable channels. They had a big hit this year with the Girlfriend Experience. So they're looking to capitalize on that and go for some more prestige, critically acclaimed TV, I guess. And Heels is one of their efforts. I'll watch it. If it's available outside Starz at some point, just like I'll watch the Glow thing.
That's on Netflix though, right?
That's on Netflix. It's streaming on Netflix. I'll have to borrow a friend's Netflix password or Officer, go and watch Netflix at a friend's house. I think it's good. I mean, if it gets people interested who wouldn't have been interested in wrestling to like have them check out an indie show or even the WWE, I think that's fine. More people, the better.
That is true.
It'll be interesting to see how, especially because like the Glow thing is going to be more of like a campy comedy, whereas Heels seems like it's a straightforward drama about like an indie fed. It'd be interesting to see sort of how they nail those details and what they get right, what they maybe don't get right. All right, so that was the news. That was all the news we had this week. I just wanted to touch on real briefly. We mentioned the Tournament of Survival. Zandig's Tournament of Survival. Pace Magazine, which now is covering wrestling regularly, published a guide to 5 under-the-radar North American wrestling tournaments. The Tournament of Survival is not on it. Presumably that's really under the radar. But I wanted to just talk about briefly some of these tournaments because tournaments are sort of the indie thing, right? Like you have the Battle of Los Angeles, which is a tournament format. You have the King of Trios in Chikara. You have the Tournament of Death in CZW. Tournaments are kind of a big deal. And WWE has, its own tournaments. Maybe this year the women's tournament. We're certainly hearing that. But you know what? If you if you don't want to pay like the ridiculous $1,000 or whatever the scalpers are asking for Bola, or you don't want to fly to England to see King of Trios this year, and you're in the United States, plenty of options for you.
Are there plenty of options, Tom? Are you going to tell us about those options?
There's 5, according to Pace Magazine. I would add the Tournament of Survival. Also the IWA Mid-South Deathmatch Tournament. They have a 2-day Deathmatch Tournament, IWA Mid-South. There's a women's Deathmatch Tournament and a men's Deathmatch Tournament. But anyway, these are the ones they picked. And I've heard of most of these, so I felt real good about myself. Smash Wrestling does a Can USA Classic. I've seen a lot of people tweet about this, but I've never caught up with it. Smash Wrestling is based in Canada. This is I
can't believe they call it a Cam USA and not Can-Am.
I know, right? This is a women's tournament. It's not a traditional tournament, but what it does is pits women from the U.S. against women from Canada in a series of matches to determine which side will be the best. I don't think there's currently a women's tournament, a regular women's tournament in North America. Shine and Shimmer don't have one. WSU hasn't done one in a while. Queens of Combat doesn't really do one. Or maybe they do. Anyway, Can USA Classic. You can also watch it. I like it because it has the patriotic thing.
I demand that you call it not Can USA, but Canusa.
Canusa. You watch the Canusa tournament, and you can root for America or Canada, I guess, if you're Canadian. Another one, I think we've mentioned this, actually, but it's getting a lot of attention. It's the Jim Lynam Memorial Tournament, which is run by AAW out of Chicago, Illinois. AAW is one of the best indies in North America right now. And this is similar to the Ted Petty Invitational, which was another IWA Mid-South thing in the early 2000s. And you can look back at some of those Ted Petty Invitational cards, and it's astonishing. Like, there was one year where they had like Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, Chris Hero, AJ Styles, Roddy Strong, like just all these guys who would go on to define the business for the next 10 plus years, 10, 15 years and counting. And that's, I guess, the thrill of these sort of tournaments, that you can kind of see people on their way up. And then 10 years later, you can be like, I remember seeing that guy in the Berwyn Eagles Club or whatever. So the Ted Petty, forgive me, the Jim Lynam.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from?
That was the old IWA Mid-South. That was the Ted Petty Invitational. I got my guy named tournaments mixed up. Jim Lynam Memorial Tournament this year. It's going to be October 13th in Marionette Park, Illinois, and also in Berwyn, Illinois, at the Berwyn Eagles Club. This is the next one they mentioned is the ECWA Super A tournament, which is one that started in our era back in the late 90s. This was a big deal at the time. Past winners included Christopher Daniels, Low Key, Paul London, Davey Richards, and Tommaso Ciampa, among many others. It was the kind of place where you'd see like Daniel Bryan at the time, Bryan Danielson versus Low Key. But it's changed. It's not quite the super indie tournament it once was. But this year, April 29th, Woodbury Heights, New Jersey, Leo Rush and Joey Janela have been announced. So could be pretty good. Then the Scenic City Invitational. This is like the top tournament of the Southern Indies. The Southern Indies are getting a lot of attention right now. They have very passionate fans. PWX just had their big show over the weekend, their big annual show, which was a lot of fun to watch. The Scenic City Invitational, which is run by Empire Wrestling Entertainment in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which I guess is the Scenic City. It's kind of a throwback style in some ways to the old NWA, but with a lot of guys like Chip Day and Anthony Henry and Gunnar Miller, who are getting really well known in the South, but not quite breaking out nationally yet. And the last one they have is AIW, another great Midwestern company, AIW's JT Lightning Invitational Tournament. And they suggest this is a replacement for the King of Trios. Well, the King of Trios isn't going away. It's just they're just doing it in England this year. So they also note that AIW does lack the family-friendly atmosphere of Chikara, and that is 100% true. If you listen to their wonderful podcast, The Card is Going to Change, you can hear just how little they resemble the family-friendly atmosphere of Chikara. They also they get like top indie talent. They have like local guys. They book a lot of women, and they also but they also like have like really weird kind of like what smaller indies do. They try to book like a guy from TV in the old day, like a Attitude Era star or something. So like AIW will just book the weirdest shows sometimes, where it's like a bunch of super indie guys, and then some luchadors, and then some women, and then like the Honky Tonk Man.
All right, Honky Tonk Man.
They once booked
we'll
the
take
Honky
zero
Tonk Man.
bumps in the match.
They once booked him just to make an appearance at a college party. Like any AIW show. They also do Girls Night Out, which is an all-women show, and they do Battle of the Sexes, which is women wrestling men. It's a lot of fun, AIW, if you're not checking out AIW. So those are some tournaments. The only ones I'd add would be the deathmatch tournaments. The old Tournament of Survival, Tournament of Death, IW Mid-South, various deathmatch tournaments. Tournament is a good... and Beyond Wrestling, they do their tournament for tomorrow. How can I forget Beyond Wrestling? They're sort of half-hearted about the tournament. I'll be honest with you. Kind of half-heart. Wrestling coming up this weekend? Got some shows coming up?
What's coming up this weekend? Something good?
This weekend, got a lot of Evolve coming up.
Woo!
This Friday, we have Evolve 78. This is on FloSlam. So if you get the FloSlam, you can watch Evolve 78. Saturday, February 24th, we have Timothy Thatcher versus Fred Yehai, whatever, for the Evolve Championship. We got Keith Lee versus Zack Sabre Jr., Jeff Cobb versus Drew Galloway, ACH versus Tracy Williams, Anthony Henry, who I mentioned earlier, he's up and coming, Southern star, versus Matt Riddle, Jason Kincaid versus Ethan Page, Chris Dickinson and Jaka versus the Gatekeepers, and Darby Allin versus Austin Theory. So that, it'll be an Evolve show. Probably the matches will be good. Probably I won't remember any of the matches. I'll watch it. God knows I'll watch it. But so that's the 24th. So that's Friday. Although FloSlam does this a lot. FloSlam will get like dates and times wrong.
Oh, FloSlam.
So yeah, so FloSlam is saying this is on Saturday, February 24th. February 24th is Friday. So and that yeah. So yeah, they say it. This is coming to us from the MCW Arena in Java, Maryland. They say it's starts Saturday, February 24th at 4:15 p.m. So just double check anything that's on FloSlam. Just double check. Go to www.live.com and double check because I'm pretty sure they're not going to start. The show's not going to start at 4 p.m. on Friday.
4 p.m. Friday. That's perfect timing for a wrestling show.
Checking the WWN Live site. In fact, no, it's actually 8 p.m. Eastern Time. 8 p.m. Friday the 24th, not Saturday the 24th. But it looks like the card is what was reported. So good for FloSlam. Then on Saturday, February 25th in Queens, New York, Evolve 79. That is 6 p.m. Sort of early on Saturday. But it's basically it's your Evolve guys. Timothy Thatcher, the winner of Timothy Thatcher and Fred Yehai versus Zack Sabre Jr. Drew Galloway versus Matt Riddle, Ethan Page versus Darby Allin, Tracy Williams versus Keith Lee, ACH, Jason Kincaid, Jeff Cobb, Jaka, Chris Dickinson, Austin. I mean, it's the same cast of characters that was on, just in like a different combination. That's the Evolve promise. You will see the same stuff, just in sort of a different combination. Slightly more intriguing though. Saturday. I think it's Saturday. I think it's Saturday. According to FlowSlam, anyway, it is Saturday, February 25th. It starts at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Coming to you from San Francisco, California. Pro Wrestling Revolution. And the excitement here, it's a lucha show. And the excitement of this lucha show is that Ultimo Dragon will be in the main event against Vaquero Fantasma. Ultimo Dragon's, he's getting up there, but still be fun to see him.
That would, yeah. He's getting old, but he's still all right.
Yes. Definitely worth seeing. Also on the show, Ultimo Panda versus Kikutaro. That'll be a fun one. Los Luchas versus La Migra. La Migra, I assume, has like a border patrol gimmick based on their name. That'll be good. Arkady Fedorov versus Mysterioso Jr. Grappler the Third, Papo Esco, and Cazador del Alma versus Jody Christopherson, Jungle Boy, and Pantera Jr. Jungle Boy, by the way, is the son of Beverly Hills 90210 hunk Luke Perry. And also El Chicano Memo Cuevas versus El Zucarita. So, a lot of lucha action, and you get to see Luke Perry's son. So,
Luke Perry might show up.
Luke Perry might be there. He's come to his son's show. He hasn't worked or anything, but he's been in the stands cheering his son on. His son's 19.
A smart promoter would have him be part of the show.
A smart promoter would have him be part of the show. Although I don't know what the lucha audience is like. I don't know if they're big maybe they're big 90210 fans. I don't know. Was the show on in Mexico? It might have been.
Who knows?
Anyway, so there's 2 Evolve shows, Friday, Saturday, and then this lucha show Saturday night, all of which are available on the FlowSlam. You should definitely sign up for that if you're into wrestling, because there's usually good stuff. And then a week after that, it's Fastlane time, but we won't get into that until next week.
Fastlane. Fastlane.
Is there anything else coming up that we should talk about?
Is there?
I don't think so.
I don't think there is. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Anything exciting going on in the world of Ring of Honor? What am I saying?
Cool.
Exciting going on at Ring of Honor? Unlikely.
Yeah, no, I think it's been I think we've covered the waterfront for this week. We'll know a little bit.
I guess all that's left to do is to shill our products.
So first of all, if you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Tumblr, closetanxiety.tumblr.com, and hakujinjo.tumblr.com. A lot of wrestling content there. Closet of Anxiety. Also on Twitter, at xcornmuffinx, or at TJ Breen. I briefly locked down my tweets because a bunch of Pepe accounts got mad at me yesterday, and I was suddenly deluged by Pepe-headed Twitter accounts, and I was like, I'm just gonna protect
you were deluged by Pepe memes.
I was a bunch of different Pepe accounts and Kek, MAGA, all that shit. They got
You got attacked by ethnic Kekistanis?
I did because I made fun of Milo losing his book deal.
Oh.
I don't know why they singled me out among the tens of thousands of people making fun of Milo. But they weren't happy. So I'm a professional, and unwisely I use my professional account to tweet about wrestling and stuff. So I thought I better just lock this down, let the stuff blow over. But now it's if you want to go and find me on Twitter, it's easy to do. My tweets are my awesome tweets are public again. And last but not least is we have a book called 3 Moves of Doom. It's short stories, horror stories about pro wrestling. Joe wrote one, I wrote one, and acclaimed horror writer Matthew M. Bartlett wrote one. Joe did the cover art, and he also did the interior art, which is a takeoff on old kayfabe magazines. So you can go anywhere books are sold. You can buy that online. in Kindle format or hard copy. And if you like it and you want to write a review on Amazon or Goodreads or an abandoned movie theater wall and spray paint, whatever, that would be great. We'd love it.
I'd like to see a review on an abandoned movie theater wall. If someone wants to get on it, because take pictures, we will promote that.
Right. If you do that, make sure to take a picture and upload it. So like people other than the other strange vagrants who frequent the abandoned movie theater will be able to see it. But it's fine if just they see it, but we'd also like to see it.
Yeah, because that actually, come to think of it, that would be the greatest review ever. If someone did that, I would be overjoyed.
Especially if it was like a real, like, considered like a long, it's like a 300-word review. It like really goes into detail about the stories. I'd appreciate that. But yeah, so that's how you can find us. That's how you can find more of our stuff. Actually, I just tweeted a link on Twitter to a really good short story about pro wrestling that neither one of us wrote. It's called The Unshakable Kayfabe of Tommy Rage by Andrea Gregovich, and it's good. It's a really good story. It's worth your time. But I think that's it for this week.
That's going to do it.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about Fastlane and whatever else. Hopefully no one else will die.
Hopefully no one else will die. We had 3 this week, so maybe we're good for 2 more weeks.
We might be good. And we'll come back and I'll let you know how Luke Perry's son looked wrestling.
All right. So everybody get ready for some Luke Perry's son news next week.
Take it easy, everyone.
See ya next time.